let's go to the next part. This is a personal one, very, very personal for me. Let's go and put this up there on the screen. Speaking of Trump supporting things in the state of Florida, Trump is now in support of the recreational, quote unquote, recreational marijuana initiative in Florida. Let me read entirely. As everyone knows, I was and will be again the most respected law and order president in U.S. history. We will take our streets back by being tough on crime, blah, blah, blah. Like in Florida, like so many other states that have already given their approval, personal amounts of marijuana will be legalized for adults with Amendment 3. Whether people like it or not, this will happen through the approval of voters. So it should be done correctly. We need the state legislature to responsibly create laws that prohibit the use of it in public spaces so we do not smell marijuana everywhere we go, like we do in many of the Democratic-run cities. True. At the same time, someone should not be criminal in Florida when this is legal in so many other states. We do not need to ruin lives and waste taxpayer dollars arresting adults with personal amounts of it on them, and no one should grieve a loved one because they died from fentanyl-laced marijuana. We will make America safe again. So Trump is now fully in support of Amendment 3, and it's funny because a lot of the criticism from the pro-life side of Trump on these amendments and all that applies exactly to this one. This is not, let me be very clear, Amendment 3 is not decriminalization. It is straight up commercial legalization of pot. In the same way that you see in Denver and everywhere else, which will lead to the massive proliferation of weed stores literally everywhere, the putrid smell of marijuana. You can say whatever you want about, oh, well, we need to prohibit public space. It's not going to happen because the commercial incentive is way too strong. My friend Charles Lehman wrote a great Wall Street Journal op-ed just this morning about the problems with widespread legalization with no curbs on commercialization, excuse me, with no curbs on commercialization or on the increased percentage of THC in products, no regulation literally whatsoever. And by the time people even try and get around to doing that, a lot of the damage is already done in terms of traffic fatalities, rising addiction, problems with children, schizophrenic breaks, and increased amounts of crime. So that's all I would say on the subject, but Trump clearly has, quote, gone woke on the issue of
it's
like, why follow popular trends on weed, but on abortion we're like, oh no, well we gotta stick with
the answer to that because the abortion people are very powerful.
Well, maybe I should become powerful. I don't know. We all need to rise up.
Maybe we should, Saagar.
Yeah, I mean, being against weed, especially against the commercialization of weed, is probably a way more popular position than being straight up pro-life, the way some of these IVF religious Catholics are.
So I have the polling on it. It depends on, your definition of where these things lie, I guess, in terms of the popularity of the position. But overall support for marijuana legalization is 70%. Democrats, it's 87%. Independents is 70%. Republicans, it's 55%. So even among Republicans, it's a majority at this point. So, he's reading the polls. I guess I would just say with all of this stuff, I don't know. You tell me if you feel this way too. It all just feels really sort of flailing and desperate. Like the pander is a little too obvious, I mean, it feels, especially on the abortion thing, like all over the place. You can tell he's looking at the polls. He's like, I got a problem. What can I do? He's spinning his wheels. He's trying to throw different attacks at Kamala against the wall that aren't really sticking. The weed thing out of nowhere feels the same way. It all feels a little panicked and flailing and not considered and not, I'm happy for him if he stuck with his pro-choice position. I prefer that. I prefer he stick with his marijuana position. We'll see if he does. He probably will because there isn't as much of a powerful organized constituency on the other side. And, that's ultimately what caused him to fold, which shows you just how powerful that constituency continues to be in the Republican Party. Even with Donald Trump, who does have this very strong hold on the base, cult of personality around him with that, whatever, even he felt like he couldn't hold his position shifting on abortion without facing, real ramifications from that part of the Republican base. So yeah, in any case, he's reading the polls and looking at that 70% overall support and thinking that he's got to get on the right side of that. And I guess because it's on the ballot in Florida, he didn't feel like he could not take a position on it. Or maybe he thought, the other thing, Saagar, this just occurred to me. He's on the Lex Fridman podcast today. Obviously excited about RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard endorsing him. He's been going on all these different streamer and podcasts. That's been a concerted strategy. And his campaign thinks that they can reach young men in particular through this like podcast approach. And in that frame, he changed his position on crypto. That was part of the appeal to this audience. And so this could be part of a concerted campaign strategy to appeal to young men. Because if you look at age 18 to 34, 79% of young people, men and women, age 18 to 34, support marijuana legalization. So it could be a part and parcel to that strategy.
No,
it actually just occurred to me.
You're obviously correct, and I know that's right, which is that this is a attempt to win over the coveted, the quote-unquote barstool, socially libertarian demographic, people who don't trust the mainstream media, listen to a lot of podcasts, Lex Friedman, Theo Vaughn, and all of that, right in that Sean Ryan podcast as well, the so-called like YouTube politics space, which is predominantly on the right. Lex Friedman is not right-wing, but I'm saying previously there's been a lot of crossover with, at the very least with Sean Ryan's show, right, in terms of politically the valence of what that looks like. And you want to be able to spread and try and reach people who traditionally are not going to be in a mainstream platform. I think all of that is actually quite smart. Weed is almost certainly going to be a part of that. If he does, let's say, appear on the Joe Rogan podcast, which, we'll see, then Joe said he doesn't want to interview him, but, he may. I don't know. Joe would probably ask him about it. So he wants to get, in a position where he's roughly in line with where it's going to be. But my only point on this is that it's very funny to me that it's like, oh, it'll pander and go in one direction on one issue like weed, but then on, pro-life or whatever, the genuine tyranny of the minority, if we're thinking of like Nassim Taleb and how the most intolerant almost always win, their litmus tests are the ones that are literally forcing him into one of the most unpopular positions in modern American history. And if he loses, it is no doubt in my mind that is the only reason why he lost the election. It will be because of abortion. Now, there will be a lot more that backs all of that up, but as we see from all the numbers, that Harris graph, that you showed us on registration, on the animating, reason why Democrats are coming out to vote, it's just such an own goal for him, and it is almost an insurmountable political force for him. Whereas I think he could have gotten past many, many other things if this wasn't on the ballot.
Well, and think about what just happened with these comments and shifting positions and whatever. He gave people a news cycle that's about abortion, which is the last thing he wants a news cycle about. And it's the polar opposite of what has always been his superpower. And this is what he's really struggled with in the Kamala Harris era, is because the Democrats aren't taking his bait the way they used to, as evidenced by Kamala in that interview. She gets asked about like the, you turn black comments, and she's like, whatever, same old playbook, next question. They're not taking the bait. And he is struggling to define the news cycles and set the tone of the conversation and set the terms of the conversation in the way that he has always been able to do, and that has been so effective for him. So with this like flailing all over the place with abortion, he gifts the Democrats a news cycle about abortion, which is, that's their greatest wish. If they have more days talking about abortion between now and Election Day and fewer days talking about immigration between now and Election Day, guess what? That landscape is looking pretty good for them, and he just gave them an assist in that regard.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.